morning. Happy Sabbath. Just in case everybody didn't know yet, I got a little bling on my finger. But it's the reason why I said it is because we finally got back, and we are actually missing home quite a bit. Even though Hawaii is home for me, this is also a home, and so we'll remind me of that today. And so it's a pleasure actually to be able to worship with everybody today, and we're just glad as a church to be able to come together and have worship with each other and celebrate the Sabbath and some other stuff too. You know, things that happen. You know? And so we just want to go ahead and invite everybody to worship with us, to be a part of and participate with us in all of this. We have a lot of good things happening today, and we want to make sure that you are involved in every single bit of it. And so one of the things that we do, or actually I want to just kind of announce a little bit and show you guys some stuff. Go ahead, Melissa, show them some pictures. This happened. And then the next one, we just kind of, had to be a little serious at some point. And then the next one after that, we finally got all the family as best as we can. And so, but I want to also extend this idea of that, the fact that we did expand our family as the Lopez and the McCulloughs got together, but also we added more family into this church as well. And we're constantly adding more family into this church. And so we're here together and worshiping with each other. So I'm going to ask if you can stand up, walk over. Sorry, you have an answer. Okay.
Okay, so for those of you that were here for Vision Night, Pastor Danny and Krishna actually announced various new ministries. And one of the new ministries that we're kicking off is the marriage couples ministry. So not only do we have the men's ministry and the women's ministry, we are now also adding the marriage couples ministry. Today we're kicking it off with a survey. So for today, our deacons is going to help us pass out for the married couples to please fill out the survey. We just want to know what it is that you would like to get from this ministry. And
actually, we argued about scratch that. We had a very lively discussion about the questions that we will ask for the couples. And, that's how couples are, right? You communicate, you discuss. And she won it, but, she got her way. But at least I had the final say. And another gentleman, husband said, yes dear. Anyway, the questions that we're asking here right now, I suggest that both answer, including the men. Remember now, husbands, don't go to your empty box section in your brain, if you know what I mean. And let your wife answer the question. Because you will go to this ministry right now and say, why is it all geared towards the wife? We need to know from what the men want to do also in the ministry. Okay? So I suggest both of you answer the questions so at least you will have a say. Okay? And please give them back to the deacons. Now, marriage is actually even newlyweds and those who are married 60 years and older. Okay, we all have the same problem. We all have the same problem. We just don't want to admit it sometimes, but we do. So we need this. Married couples, we need this.
Yeah, my 11-year-old cousin, he wrote down on this one piece of paper, we had this table that said, marriage advice. And my 11-year-old cousin decided he wanted to write something down, so he writes, remember a poem, happy wife, happy life. What's a wisdom from the 11-year-old, that's awesome. Just one last thing, actually, the church board meeting is on Monday, April 16 at 7 p.m. So just keep in mind we have that for those of you who are part of the board. We have some very good discussions to have, lively discussions, as Mel pointed out, as best as we can, just to make sure that we're doing everything in line with God's purpose for our church. So if you can now, go ahead and stand up, walk around, greet some people with some Eagle Rock love. Blessings, church.
Good morning, boys and girls. It is time for our children's story. And on your way down up front, would you please stop by all the grown-ups and make sure they give you some money to bring it up to support our worthy student fund. So come on up, grab those dollars and fives and tens and 20s, and come and join us up front. Well, I'm so glad you're here, and I'm going to tell you a story about a boy named Jeremy. Is anybody here named Jeremy? Good, good. I didn't want people to think it was about you. So there was this boy named Jeremy, and he wasn't in very good shape. He was born with a lot of disabilities, and so he had a really tough time. And he was in second grade, but he was way older than everybody else. He was already 12 years old, but he was only in second grade because he had such a difficult time. And his teacher was a lady named Miss Miller. And Miss Miller tried her best, but Jeremy had a really, really difficult time in school because he wasn't healthy, he wasn't very well. And they had gotten to Easter, and Miss Miller had talked to his mom and dad. Oh, I don't know what to do. How can I help Jeremy do better? And they said, we don't really know either, but keep trying because we know he really loves you, and we're happy to have you as his teacher. And so, while thinking about Easter, Miss Miller decided, I'm going to tell the boys and girls the story of Jesus, about how Jesus died and about how Jesus was resurrected. And then when Jesus was resurrected and came to life again, it represented new life. And so she told the boys and girls the story, and she said, I'm going to give you a homework assignment. Yay, homework. And so she gave all the boys and girls a plastic egg. And it looked like one of the Easter eggs that you may have gotten last week. What was in your Easter eggs last week? What was in your Easter egg? Candy. Yeah, isn't that a fun thing? I'm not sure how much candy there was at the resurrection, but it's a fun tradition that we get. Did you have something other than candy? Probably some chocolate, maybe some candy Easter eggs. So Miss Miller told all the boys and girls, I'm going to give you this plastic egg, and I want you to take it home tonight, and tomorrow I want you to bring your plastic egg back, and I want you to put inside it something that represents new life. And the boys and girls said, we love that idea, Miss Miller. Let's go do it. And so she gave each of the boys and girls a plastic egg. There were 19 boys and girls in her class. And school ended, and they took their plastic eggs home. When she announced the assignment, Jeremy stood there, and he just stared at Miss Miller. He didn't say anything. He didn't react. And Miss Miller was kind of worried if Jeremy understood the assignment. So she thought, you know what, when I get home tonight, I'll just call his mom and dad and explain it to them. Well, she finally got home, and all of a sudden, she had one emergency after another. She had to go shopping. She found out her kitchen sink was all clogged, so she had to call the repairman to come and get it fixed. And everything took so much longer than she thought, and she never called Jeremy's parents. And she didn't realize it until the next day. So she got to school, the boys and girls came in, and the first thing they did at school was their math. Because math is good. Math helps you do lots and lots of things. And when they were finished with their math lesson, she said, all right, boys and girls, come bring your eggs up, and I want you to put them in this basket. So they all did. All 19 boys and girls did. And she said, okay, now I'm going to open your eggs, and we're going to see what you found that talks about new life. So she grabbed an egg, and she opened it, and inside she found, and I want you to understand that when you sit at somebody else's desk in the office here and they don't have all the highlighters you want to use, that sometimes everything doesn't come out as pretty as you would like it to be. So she opened the first egg and she found a picture of a flower. And she said, well, who does this belong to? And a little girl named Allison said, that's mine, Miss Miller. I found a new flower because flowers grow in the spring. She said, oh, Allison, that's very good. Would you like to have this? That's all for you. And so she picked up a second egg, and she said, all right, let's open this one. And she opened it, and inside was a picture of, what is that? A butterfly. And she said, wonderful, who did this? And another little girl named Judy said, Miss Miller, that's my picture. She said, wonderful job, Judy. Would you like a picture of a butterfly? Okay, that's for you. And so she picked up the third egg, and she said, well, let's open this and see what we have here. And she opened it up, and inside, she found a picture of, you don't know what that is, do you? That's a picture of a rock with blue moss growing on it, because we don't have green in the office. And so she said, whose is this? And a little boy named Justin raised his hand and said, that's mine, Miss Miller. My dad helped me find a rock with moss on it. She said, well, that's pretty good, Justin, because the moss represents life also. Would you like this? You are very welcome to it. And so then she grabbed the fourth egg, and she opened it up, and inside was nothing. And she thought, oh no, I'll bet this is Jeremy's egg. And so she looked at it, and she didn't want to embarrass him, so she took the egg and she just set it on her desk. And she started to reach for another egg, and Jeremy said, wait a minute, Miss Miller, aren't you going to talk about my egg? And she said, but Jeremy, there's nothing in your egg. And he said, that's right, Miss Miller, because my egg is empty, just like the tomb was empty when Jesus was raised from the dead. And that was the new life. Miss Miller said, that is excellent, Jeremy. That's about the best lesson we could have. She finished opening the other eggs and sent the boys and girls out to play recess. And when they went out to play recess, she sat at her desk and she just cried and cried and cried because she was so touched by what Jeremy had brought. And she understood that Jeremy really understood well what new life was all about. I'd like to tell you that this story has a really happy ending, but sadly it doesn't. The school year ended, and Jeremy, because he had been so sick, he died. And at his funeral, the boys and girls from his class came. And a lot of times people at a funeral will throw a flower on top of somebody's casket. There were people who did that, but you know what the boys and girls did on Jeremy's casket? They put an empty plastic egg. I want you to remember that Jesus rose for you, and that's a new life for all of us. And I hope that Easter was fun, but I hope you remember what it really, really means. Would somebody like to pray for us? Oh,
please help us to have a great Sabbath next year. And please help us to have a great year. And please help us to be really happy. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Now, on your way back to your seats, the prettiest girl I know is sitting over here with a bag full of Easter eggs, and you all get an empty egg. And we'll leave that up to Mom and Dad to fill it with whatever you want. Thank you, boys and girls.
I'm just playing. We at Eagle Rock Church, we do a lot of stuff, and we also get a chance to minister to people. Couples ministry has been built because of the needs that we have at this church. We have a lot of needs from the families and the communities and the couples and just the young adults and youth that we have at this church, and even the children especially who we have at this church. There's tons and tons of needs that we want to continue to meet as a community. And so in order to do this, we usually ask each week for you to contribute to these things. For you to contribute to the ministries that we are building, to contribute to the ministries that we already have, and to even contribute to the people and to the education system that we have, so that we can support our students over in our academies and in our universities and colleges as well. And so if you can continue to give, your money and your contributions will go to these things. Your time, your energy is also a tie to this community. And so we ask each week if you continue to do this. Thank you so much for those of you who have supported so far. And thank you so much for the giving that you will be giving, for the things that you will be giving in the coming future, or today. So as the deacons fire and our ushers come forward, I'm going to do one last appeal to thank you all for this. Come on over to the front, guys. All right, would you bow your heads and pray with me? Lord God, thank you so much for all that you do for us and for giving us this chance to give to you so that you can use this money and you can use these contributions for just good ministry happening. And we want to make sure that we are always in line with you, God. So keep us there. Keep us in your space. Keep us in a space where we can allow ourselves to come back to you and for us to be able to pull people to this community so that we can be friends with and this family with each other. Build this family further. In your name we pray, God. Amen.
This is our prayer and sharing time, and it's a chance for you to share with the church body things you would like us to pray for or praises that you have. Somebody have something they would like to share? Yes, sir.
My mother-in-law is 76 26th birthday tomorrow, so for God to bless her and be with her in the future, and thank you for the time with family.
Very good. Happy birthday, Mrs. Salagube. We celebrate her. Yes, Sylvia. Okay, Marilyn Borg is in the hospital. She's anemic, and they're trying to find out why and take corrective steps. So we want to continue to remember the Borg family for the loss of their son as well. Anybody else? Yes. Well, happy birthday to young Mr. Sapp. How old? 8. Oh, what an exciting time. I'd like to remember my sister-in-law, Kathy. She's dealing with some medical issues, and we want to remember her, my father as well. Yes, Jim. Thank you very much. I'm not sure how to say this, everybody. I've been going through a lot of transition myself physically, and I've lost a lot of weight, and I just feel terrific. And it's been a lot of hard work, but it's been a great, great journey. And thank you for saying so. Joan? Okay, your sister-in-law Melinda is dealing with cancer, and we're going to visit her next week. All right, and she's pretty sick. Okay, and celebrating her birthday next week. All right, hi everyone. Always glad to see Mary Lou and her oldest daughter Julie and husband John. Glad you're here as well. Are there any unspoken requests? Thank you very much. Would you please kneel? Dear Heavenly Father, we're so grateful that it's Sabbath. We are so grateful that you have put this day in place for each of us, that it's a time to come away from the busyness of the week, the stresses that it has brought, and to come and bathe in your goodness and your love, and to worship, and to be here, to be with you and to be with each other. Thank you so very much for your wisdom and how you plan things out. We thank you, Lord, that we were able to get through this week. It brought some challenges, it brought some successes, and we are glad to be at this end, Lord, to say thank you. We have brought many requests to you this morning, Lord. Some you have heard out loud for family, for health, for whatever it may be. Some you have heard silently from our hearts to yours. We lift them up to you, Lord, present them to your throne, and we ask that you would take each request and that you would bring the answer that is needed most at the time it is needed best. We ask that you continue to help us on our journey, Lord, that we can be a light to others. We pray that you be with Danny, Pastor Danny, as he leads our sermon this morning, Lord, that we would be filled, that we would be inspired to move, to act in your name this week. Thank you again, Lord, for all that you do for each one of us. May we be blessed from you so that we can be a blessing to others. We thank you in the loving name of our precious dear Savior, Jesus. Amen.
Let's all stand together and sing our hymn. Higher ground, a higher plane that I have found, Lord. Plant my feet on higher ground. Let's sing together. I'm pressing
Therefore, I urge you, brothers and sisters, in view of God's mercy, to offer your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God. This is your true and proper worship. You may be seated as we continue to worship this morning. In Christ alone, my hope is found. He is my light, my strength, my song. This cornerstone, this solid ground, firm through the fiercest flood and storm. What was the love?
Morning, everyone. Morning. Sabbath. So excited to welcome you to the church this morning, and what a blessing it is to be together each and every Sabbath, to see so many people that we love seeing here on Sabbath, and to see some new faces as well. Happy Sabbath, everyone. So great to have you. I am pumped. I am excited this morning for a couple of different reasons. And the first reason has to do with, wow, there's no other way to say it, but a child has become a man. That's the photo. Man. That's the thing about a beautiful destination island paradise wedding. Not all of us could be there, right? But we were with you in spirit, and so some of us were able to see it online. What a beautiful wedding. And congratulations on behalf of all of us here at Eagle Rock, amen? We are so blessed to have you back. And if our impressions of Pastor Kona were good, you know, they say that you can tell a lot about a man by the company you keep. And our impressions of you have gone so much higher because of the woman that you have chosen. And those of you who are starting to get to know her, you will know what we mean. She is a treasure. We are so blessed to be able to have her become a part of our church family. And so, Pastor Kona, you did an amazing job in picking just the right person to partner with you in ministry. Katie is a minister in her own right, and we will enjoy the rest of the years that we have left getting to know her and Pastor Kona. We're just very, very excited. So, congratulations to you. Very excited about that. I'm also excited because today we're going to be sharing a very, very special gift with each and every one of you. We want to make sure that before you leave this morning, each and every one of you have something in your hands that we have been working on for the past 3 years. This is a resource that we know that we hope that will be a big, big blessing to you in a moment where you put it into your hands. But as we begin, I just want to invite you to pray with me one more time as we open up God's Word and as we begin this new series on how we grow. Let's bow our heads as we begin. Dear Heavenly Father, what a joy it is to be gathered together in your name. We know that you have special things in store for each one of us. We're so grateful to be able to have a family that is mindful and considerate and intentional about our growth. We want to grow. We don't want to stay the same. We know that you take us just as we are, but you want us to continue to grow. But sometimes your blessings are so big, so enormous, that we don't know what to do and how to take in the richness of your blessings. Help us to be able to do that as we open up your word. We pray in your name, amen. I'm going to ask the deacons to come forward and to place something in your hand. We want to get as many deacons as possible to help spread this resource around. We have prepared and make sure that we have one printed for each and every one of you. The Eagle Rock Church is a church that is committed to your growth. Whether it's through ministries from children all the way to adults, through the different ministries that reach out to the community, through the different ministries that build up families and build up marriages. All of these committees are our efforts to help us to grow and to be a blessing to other people. The pastoral staff is committed to your growth. This is something that we pray about every single week. It's something that we strategize for every single month. It's something that we plan for every single year. Your growth and our growth is paramount in this church. And so we are placing in your hands a resource, a journal, something that we believe and that we hope will be a tremendous blessing to your growth. It is a book entitled How Will We Grow? It is our gift to you. We want you to take this home, to put your name on it, to bring it back with you next week, because over the next few weeks we're going to be digging deep into this resource. And our hope is that the more we dig into it, the more we will discover ways that God has designed for each one of us to grow. It is based on the concept that we have as a church to reach up, to reach in, and to reach out. But it is in a format that we hope is easy to read, that is easy to share, and that it's easy for you to take somebody along the journey with you. And so we're going to begin reading through it today. So there's a lot to look through. So as you're getting in and you're looking, okay, what is this? It's basically a short book. It is organized into 3 different chapters. And each chapter has a story and some questions for dialogue and discussion, or for journaling. You know, maybe later this week you want to take it home and then use it as a devotional. Maybe you want to call somebody up and say, hey, you know, would you be willing to read the story? And there's questions that you can discuss. It can be used as a small group resource. It is yours to keep and yours to share. 3 chapters with discussion questions, and at the very end, there's also a section for some devotional reading, and some of those things were created by some of the Eagle Rock members that you see sitting all around you. And some are no longer with us. Anyways, we all have a resource. I want to make sure all of us, including our young people, have a resource. Raise your hand if you need one. We still have a few more. Okay, there's some over here. Anybody else, raise your hand if you need one. There's no sharing today, okay? Everybody needs to have one in their hand. There's some right over here, okay? So we'll get one to you. We want to make sure that everybody has one. So, and this one, let me have one too. I want to make sure to have one as well, right? I want to thank Pastor Polo for designing the beautiful booklet. It is a beautiful book, but we hope that the value is actually found inside. Okay? I want to ask for us, so this is going to be a little bit academic, but there's a lot to look here, but if we could just kind of focus our attention on page 4. We're going to go to page 4. This is chapter 1, and we're going to spend some time getting into chapter 1 and the significance of what chapter 1 is. There are other pages that you can look through later today or during the week. We're going to focus on page 4. So if everyone can turn to page 4, at this time we're going to read the story together. Okay? Everyone in page 4, say amen if you're at page 4. Okay, I think we're ready. We're going to start reading page 4.
Meet Theo. Theo didn't know why his car automatically steered itself to the cafe each morning, but that's where he ended up. A room full of strangers was an odd place for an introvert, but he kept coming back to observe them. Over the years, he was most intrigued by all the productive people, giving orders to their assistants by phone or writing emails on their laptops. For so long, he envied the productive life and had worked hard to be part of it. He was finally getting a taste of it while working full-time for a nonprofit. But now that he was one of the cogs in the productivity machine, not much had changed. There was still something missing in his life. In all the buzz around him, he asked himself some key questions.
Is this all there is? Can life ever offer something greater?
Theo cleaned up his table and headed towards the door, but on the way out, he noticed a friend from church. Theo was intrigued by what he saw. He noticed him praying rather intensely with a woman just out in the open, with a spiritual boldness that Theo admired. So he lingered by until Philippe was done talking with the woman, whose eyes by this time had welled up with tears. With a grateful smile, she stood up and walked out.
Oh, hi, Theo. Hey, Philippe. Tell me, how do you do it?
Well, what do you mean?
Well, praying like that with someone. How are you so confident?
Oh, well, I like praying, and if it feels right to do it right then and there, well, I just do it.
Philippe continued to explain his approach. To Theo's surprise, Philippe's response was not what he thought. Philippe went on to explain.
Well, you see, Theo, prayer and sharing your faith is a discipline that informs your purpose in life. It's not just something you pick up one day or for a week or anything like that. It's a daily exercise. It needs to be practiced privately, and then when you're ready, implement it in the real world.
As the conversation ended, Theo walked away with one thought. A consistent spirituality really can inform your purpose in life. Throughout the week, Theo wrestled with the idea of prayer, worship, and purpose. What does consistent prayer look like? How do prayer and faith give confidence in my purpose? How do I make it real for me? Fueled by these questions, Theo's car steered itself to church that Sabbath. As he approached the church, every step forward on the tile floor furthered his resolve to find more answers. That worship service felt different. The music felt different. The message triggered questions about his purpose in life. After the service, Theo found Philippe and asked,
Can we eat together? there's so much I need to ask you about.
All right, so that's the story of chapter 1. And of course, it bridges into the next part, which introduces the first foundational concept that is important to us here at Eagle Rock, reaching up, which means that we grow in God through a life of authentic worship. Authentic worship. Okay, I'm going to set that aside because you'll have some time later on to kind of dig into the rest of the chapter. But at this moment, let's continue to ask that question: what does authentic worship mean to us? Let's talk about Theo. Okay, who is Theo? Theo in this story is a secret. Okay, Theo is a normal guy. He's a normal person, much like some of us. He has perhaps grown up in the church. He has gone to church school. As an adult, he continues to be connected regularly with the church. Maybe he never had a falling away from church, maybe not a meaningful one at least, and yet he still has questions about his faith. He has questions about God, and he hasn't particularly found his purpose in the world. He thinks he's done all the right things. He's gone to school, he's got a career, he got a job, and he stayed connected with his church, but quite hasn't found his place in the world. And he doesn't feel God leading in his life. He doesn't live a life of ultimate purpose. But in his interaction with Philippe, he begins to link two things together. He begins to link the purpose that we have in life and a life of authentic worship. And for the first time, he begins to see that maybe they really are related. See, in his mind, he used to think, well, worship is just something that we do, particularly on Sabbath morning. And then that our life purpose is worked out in a completely separate area of our life. That there's this compartmentalized faith and our approach and our reach up to God. And then that our life purpose is completely figured out or factored in, completely separate from that. But when he sees Philippe kind of blending the two, he begins to say, interesting, how is it that my purpose can be so distinct and so separate from the way that I worship? And I have to ask you a really, really interesting question this morning. One might say that even with a degree of faith and commitment to a church, one can still kind of lose their way, can't they? Even if we continue to be a long-standing church member, or if we continue to have some form of faith or belief, and when we listen to that Christian song, or we resonate with it, or when we hear that verse or that posting on our social media, it's like, oh wow, that's a really good thing. Yeah, I believe that about God, and I believe that I need to grow in that. And yet still not have a vibrant connection with God. So the question I have to ask you, is it possible to have a degree of faith and commitment even to a church and still find yourself to be lost, to have your way lost in the world? I'm going to transition now into a different story. It's a story that many of us grew up with, they're familiar with. It's a story that is actually pivotal in the grand narrative of God's people. A story that begins in the life of Jacob. In the story of Genesis, we see that there are pivotal characters that begin to do things, that God begins to introduce himself. In the characters in the book of Genesis, they don't have the benefit of seeing the life of Christ lived out in this world. They don't have the benefit of the New Testament informing their walk. They don't have the benefit of the prophets and David and his ups and downs to learn from them. They don't have the Psalms that guide them and instruct them. They're just trying to figure out who this God person is and who this God being is and what it means to be a follower of God. And so you have this great, great Father Abraham. Father Abraham who somehow figured out how to have an intimate walk with God. And he walks with God. He's known for walking with God. But then he has a son named Isaac who, hasn't quite figured it out. By the time you get to Jacob, the grandson of Father Abraham, he has God kind of at arm's length. And so when Isaac begins to come to the end of his days, he recognizes that he has been blessed, that he is a child of promise. He has this blessing that God has given Abraham and to him. He said that I'm going to use you to bless the entire world, that your family is going to number the sands of the entire world, the dust of the ground. And you're going to be a tremendous blessing to other people. Your numbers are going to grow, grow, grow. And as he's coming to the end of his life, he has Isaac, right? And he has another child. And he's wanting to transmit this blessing to Jacob. And he gathers him and his twin brother. Remember the story? They were the twin brothers, and they were always constantly, against each other, right? He brings them together and says, I am going to give the blessing to my firstborn. And if you remember the story, and for those of you who may be new to the story, these two sons, one of them deserved blessing. But somehow the mother who favored Jacob, she causes him to deceive her father so that Jacob can receive not just the blessing, but the entire inheritance and all the wealth and the authority in that household. So he goes there, and because the father's old and he can't see, and he can't figure out that it's not his, and he bestows the blessing upon Jacob. The problem with this, as you know, is not only was it deceptive, but there's something that's far deeper that's going on in this story. There's something that goes into the spiritual realm. What was happening is that they were dealing with a blessing that is so enormous, that is so far-reaching, that they didn't have the relationship capital to be able to determine how to handle this blessing. Do you see what I'm saying? Sometimes God's blessing is so enormous and so far-reaching that unless we have a serious, intimate connection with God, we're not going to know how this is going to fit into our lives. And so what was happening in their lives is all of them, including Jacob and Esau and their mother and even the father, they were these flawed, dysfunctional family unit that didn't really have an intimate connection with God. And so when this enormous blessing came, they didn't know how to apply it to their lives, so they began to leverage the blessing for personal gain. It's kind of like this, if you're standing in line, remember there used to be that, I forget, the Thrifties, that drugstore, that you really had that really inexpensive ice cream. Remember it used to be like a dime? I remember when it was like a dime. That really dates me, doesn't it? Right? But we used to go over there, and I think one day it went up to 2 dimes, and we're like, oh, what's going on? It's like, now you're like doubling the price of ice cream, really? So we used to go to Thrifties, and I remember, you remember this, right? There was these kids that are standing in front of you and you're impatient because you want to get your ice cream right, and you say, oh, I want 2 scoops, Dad, I want 2 scoops. And the dad's like, oh, no, you just better have one. I'm like, no, I really want 2. I can't decide which flavor, right? So I want 2 scoops. And the dad's like, that's going to be too much for you. Like, come on, Dad, please. Of course, the dad doesn't go there, for any other reason than to please the child, right? So he gives him 2 scoops. The child gets the 2 scoops. You know the story, right? He starts to eat the ice cream, and it's because it's a hot day, right? You go outside, and the child's trying to eat the ice cream, and then what happens? It starts to melt, right? It can't keep up. And it starts to, you see it. It starts to, go down the hand, and it starts to melt down into the sleeve, and then the child is like, oh, Dad, what am I going to do with it? They never finish it, do they? Because it's too much. It's too much of a good thing. That's kind of what was happening here. There was this blessing that God was going to use these people to bless the entire world. But the blessing was so enormous that they didn't have the relationship to accommodate the application of the blessing. And so what happens? They deceive, they lie, they cheat, and then and the result is that Jacob has to flee. He has to run away. His father, why? Because his brother's going to kill him. And I don't mean like when we talk about it, our brother and sister, oh, I'm going to kill you, right? He was really going to kill him. Like he was going to murder him. So he literally had to leave. And so his life completely changes from one day to the next. So he's running for his life. He's having to leave. So think about it. They're in the land of promise. They're in a place where they have to, this is the place that God had told him, I'm going to give you this land. So the irony is that now he's fleeing from it. So he received the blessing, but now he has to run away from one of the results of the blessing, which was to get this land. So on his way out, and you have your Bible, please turn to the book of Genesis, Genesis 28. You see this tremendous encounter. It's one of the most vivid encounters that any person to this point ever had with God. Okay? So he's running away for his life, literally. He's got nothing with him except the clothes on his back and maybe a little, a long tunic that he folds and he can sleep on, right? So Jacob is running away. Genesis chapter 28, we're going to start with verse 12. Genesis 28, verse 12. He's running away for his life. And then something happens. God speaks to him through a dream. And I sincerely believe that the reason why the encounter wasn't more vivid is because he didn't have the relationship capital to experience God any deeper than this. That's just my feeling. But this is what happened. Verse 12, he had a dream, and behold, a ladder was set down to earth with its top reaching to the heaven. And behold, the angels of God were ascending and descending on it. So they were coming up and down between heaven and earth. And behold, the Lord, God himself, stood above it. And he said to Jacob, right? We're talking about Jacob. He said, I am the Lord, the God of your father Abraham, and the God of Isaac. The land which you lie, I will give to you and your descendants. Your descendants will also be like the dust of the earth, and you will spread out to the west and to the east and to the north and to the south. And in you and in your descendants shall all the families of earth be blessed. Think about that. What a tremendous blessing, right? An enormous blessing. And granted, he didn't know how to apply this to his life, right? So this is why he's in this big mess, right? And then verse 15, behold, I am with you, and I will keep you wherever you go, and I will bring you back to this land, for I will not leave you until I have done what I promised you. What a tremendous, powerful blessing, right? He's basically confirming every single thing that he had promised to his father and to Father Abraham. He confirmed everything, and then he promised that he would be with him. And then verse 16 says that Jacob awoke from his sleep, and he said, surely the Lord is in this place. I did not know it. And he was afraid. He said, how awesome is this place? This is none other than the house of God, and this is the gate of heaven. What an interesting story, right? So he's running from his life. He really feels like he needs direction. He needs purpose. He has no purpose to this point. And so God steps into time. He has this dream. He tells him, I'm going to bless you. In other words, it doesn't matter how it happened, but you received the blessing. I'm confirming it. I'm going to give you everything that the blessing entailed. And once more, I'm going to give you an even greater gift than that. I'm going to give you the blessing of myself. Notice what he says. 15, behold, I am with you. I will not leave you. You see, part of the blessing that he was offering to Jacob was the blessing of God's presence. Was the blessing of being able to walk with Jacob. The problem is that Jacob didn't see it that way. When he woke up, what did he say? He said, wow, there must be something really special about this place. There must be something special about this rock, because I must have stepped into this gateway of heaven, right? There is something special about this place, and he built this altar, and he blessed it, and he worshipped it. He worshipped the place, but he kind of missed the whole point. The point was not that this is the place, this is the only place where God wants to reveal himself. What God was trying to show him is that wherever you go, I will be with you. The blessing that he wanted to give him was the assurance that wherever he went, that God would be with him. He was inviting him to walk with him intimately, the same way that he had walked with his father Abraham. Unfortunately, for whatever reason, he wasn't prepared, or his heart wasn't open to it. He certainly was in need, but maybe not to the degree that he needed to. You know, it was nice. It was powerful, and he honored it. But the decisions that he made for the next several years continue to confirm that he was walking with God at arm's length. You know, he was part of the system, right? Some of us relate to that. We're part of the system, right? We grew up in the system. We're here. You know, we have friends. You know, we come very regularly. You know, that's a big part of our life. We might even have somewhat of a devotional connection. But to some degree, God is still at arm's length. And let me tell you, there's always a really good reason for that. Particularly in the life of Jacob. Jacob had deceived his father. He had deceived and stolen from his brother. He was living with guilt. And later in the story, we find that this guilt was crushing him inside. And that's the stranglehold that sin often has in our lives. When we do something, it has the stranglehold on us, and it makes us impervious to God's blessing. That was one part of the problem that was happening for Jacob. See, he couldn't really take God in. Why? Because he was carrying all this guilt. He was carrying all this remorse. He was carrying all these, well, you know what? You know, it's nice to know that God is there, but he's not really going to work with me if I'm the kind of person who does this. So then he started this journey. He goes in there and he meets this girl, and he really falls in love with her, and then he asks to marry her. It takes him 7 years, and then he gets the wrong one, and then he works another 7 years, he gets another wrong one, and then he starts working for his father-in-law, and then he starts to deceive his father-in-law. He starts to become very wealthy at the expense of his father-in-law, and he continues that same behavior, right? He continues to do all these things. Ultimately, he ends up living 20 years with the same kind of behavior and keeping God at arm's length. And yet he was blessed by God. So again, we'll have to ask that question. Is it possible for us to be blessed by God, to know that God exists, to have some form, to be part of his system, so to speak, and still be lost? The answers to all these questions happen 20 years later, right? By the time that 20 years rolls around, he has deceived his father-in-law. He has broken with his family. He has grown, his wealth and his stature has grown exponentially, but now he has to run away. He has to run away from his father-in-law. Before he was running away from his brother, now he's running away from his father-in-law, and his father-in-law is chasing after him too. The problem is, where is he going to go? Because if he goes back home, he has to face his brother, who literally wants to kill him. But he has no choice, so he does. And so he's running away once again. So here we see this cycle. It's kind of like a 20-year loop. He's back to the same situation that he was before. Nothing has changed. He's running for his life. This time, he has more to lose. He has children. He has wives. He has hundreds of cattle with him, right? So he goes, and on the way back, just as he's about to cross the river, which in that moment is kind of like a border, he was just about to go back into the promised land, close to where his brother was, he has a second encounter. He has a second encounter with God. But this time, the encounter is much more powerful. You remember the story. This is famous with Jacob, synonymous with Jacob, right? Jacob is once again he's praying. The Great prophet tells us that his heart is completely broken, that he's finally come to terms with his guilt, and it's tearing him apart. He has not forgotten what he did to his father. He has not forgiven himself for what he did to his brother. There's all these things that were keeping God from coming in fully to his life, but once finally he's able to come to terms with what he needs to do. And what is it that he did? He finally comes to the point in his life through this traumatic circumstance. Sometimes we don't like these circumstances, but they're the only thing that often brings us right to where we need to be. So he's finally contrite, he's finally broken, he's finally humble, and he finally opens his heart to God. And do you know what God does? before he revealed himself in a dream. You know what he does now? Peter confronts is really interesting. It tells us, the Bible says the angel of the Lord, and sometimes that word is interchangeable, right? When the angel of the Lord came to Abraham, there were 3 people who came, right? It says that the angel of the Lord came to Jacob. Peter confronts makes it very clear. It was Jesus Christ himself who leaves the courts of heaven, who breaks the space-time continuum. He comes into space, into his space, and he taps him on the shoulder. So somehow he was finally at a place where he was ready to connect, to be intimate with God. And God can't resist. He leaves heaven, he comes straight down, he taps him on the shoulder, but he's still not ready. So he turns around and he says, well, who is this? And of course we know this is dangerous territory. He's all alone. This is the land of thieves and murderers. You know, we know this is very dangerous. So he's already afraid that his brother's going to kill him. So someone comes by and he turns around and they begin this wrestling match. And of course, Jesus Christ, he's not a pushover, right? So he's going to, kind of push back. And so they begin to kind of wrestle and struggle together, and for not just minutes, but hours, literally. We can't imagine in the darkness what was happening there and how they were able to, struggle with one another. Praise be to God. Jesus, he rolls with the punches. He said, okay, this is how you want to go. Let's go, right? And so he does. And so he entertains that guy. I mean, he provides what he needs. And so Jacob begins to wrestle with God himself, because he's finally able to open up. And at some point he realizes that this is no ordinary being. And he finally gets to the place in his life when he says, I will not let you go until you bless me. Now let's think about that, okay? It's good, okay? So Jesus is saying, all right, so this is progress, right? You want this blessing so bad that you're not going to let me go, right? But you forget that I've already blessed you. Do you remember I gave you that? I told you, you are already blessed. And sometimes that's what happens when we're disconnected with God, when we don't have an intimate day-to-day walk with God. Then we lose sight of the fact that some of the gifts that he's already given to us, we think we don't have them anymore. We think we lose them. But God says, I've already blessed you. But he says, okay, I'm going to bless you again. And it's almost as if Jacob is saying, you know what? Once I stood and I knelt before my father and I asked him to bless me. But because it wasn't right, I was never blessed. Will you bless me? And so Jesus blesses him. And he says, yes, you are blessed. This promise is yours. But it's more than just a promise to bless other people. The biggest component of this blessing is the blessing of my presence in your life. And for the first time, Jacob begins to take in God personally. See, you can be part of the system. You can know who God is. You can believe that he is who he is. But like Jesus said, you know what? Even the demons believe. So there's got to be a difference. There's got to be more. Right? So the Bible is very interesting. It says that this is a pivotal chapter, right? Chapter 32. Because prior to chapter 32, Jacob and his family always referred to God as the God of my fathers. The God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, right? He's always seen God as the God of my fathers. Do you know what happens after chapter 32? Jacob refers to God as my God. You see the change? That's what happened. Before, he was the God of my fathers. Now, because he's opened himself up to God, now he is my God. Right? He is my God. He's opened himself up to a personal relationship with him. And as soon as he does, guess what happens? He's filled with confidence. And he has clarity of purpose for the very first time. Now he knows what he has to do. So he steps boldly forward, and then he goes to meet face to face with the person who may kill him. But now he has an assurance that maybe something else will happen. He doesn't know what. But he comes face to face with his brother. And by this time, an angel has already spoken to his brother and softened his heart and tamed the 400-person army that's about to take him down, and it's all his family. God has worked a miracle. But more than that, he has clarified his purpose. Then he comes and he meets face to face with his brother. And into the face of his enemy, he is now able to say these words. For to see you is to see the face of, you guys know the story, right? The face of God. Somehow he is able to see in his enemy. Somehow he's progressed in his relationship with God, that he is now able to see God in even his enemies. That's powerful. That's a new relationship. That is a new walk with God. I love that story because it's a story that reminds us. And instead of trying to work out a blessing in human terms, instead of trying to leverage God's blessing, now he's walking with God. Now he knows what that blessing is for. Now he has clarity of purpose. Now he knows how God's blessings fit into his life. And he begins to live a completely different life. He's not perfect, later in his life he continues to make mistakes. But now he's walking with God closer. And you know what? That's what this first chapter in this book, How We Grow, is all about. It speaks about life. It speaks about a person who's struggling with questions about faith, about God. And then he begins to see how a community with God, a day-to-day walk, a life of authentic worship, is something that helps us. God's blessings are so big that in order for them to apply to us, we need to have a walk with him so that he can help us to see how those blessings fit, so that we can have clarity of purpose, so that we can face the unforeseen circumstances with courage and with faith and with trust that God can work all things to good. The Bible says in Romans chapter 12, and I love the way that the message says, so here's what I want you to do. God helping you take your everyday, ordinary life, you're sleeping, you're eating, you're going to work, you're walking around life, and place it before God as an offering. Embracing what God does for you is the best thing that you can do for him. Part of living a life of authentic worship is taking every area of our lives. Like Jacob, he said, there must be something special about this place. No, there's nothing special about this place. The only thing special about it is that God is special and he thinks that you're special. And wherever you go, that's where God is. Having a lifestyle of authentic worship means acknowledging God's presence in all things, in all places. Everywhere you go is a gate of heaven. And when we begin to live a life in light of that, God begins to reveal his way. He begins to give us clarity of purpose. We begin to think the way that God thinks. We begin to reason the way he does. We begin to want the things that God wants. And we begin to live a life of greater meaning and purpose. My prayer for you this morning is, as we begin this journey, we hope that you can come back next week, that you bring your How We Grow resource. We're going to get into the next parts of this book, and we hope, and our hope is that you will be blessed as you continue to grow in this journey, as you continue to consider what it means for you to live a life of authentic worship. Will you pray with me? Dear Heavenly Father, we're so grateful for the way that you use us, for the way that you come to meet with us, for the way that you are able to identify with who we are and where we are in life, and then to begin to show us through this conversation, this relationship, what the next steps are for each one of our lives. Help us to know that you have plans for us, a hope and a future. But in order to know that plan, we need you near. Come near to us as we come near to you. We ask this in the strong name of Jesus Christ. Amen. Church family, we hope that you can come back next week, and we're going to do part 2. We're going to continue to journey together in this How We Grow journal resource. And we hope to see you on Wednesday night. Wednesday night is such a blessing to so many of you. We are packed, and we have room for just a few more. But we have been receiving a tremendous blessing in those tonight. If not, we hope to see you next Sabbath here at the Table Rock Church. Go with God, be a blessing, and we hope to see you soon.
them to do it any other way.